So this is just a new Illustrator document. I'll move it over to the side here. And I just grabbed a random image and I put it in, right? Now, the image that you bring in, you don't want to scale up until you've vectorized it, right? Just leave it like this. Whatever quality you're going to get from that is based on, the original quality of the raster image, right? Pixel-based image. So this one looks pretty decent, quality's sake. And so you're going to have these lines through it because this is a raster image. You can't, there's no vector points to be manipulating. So you need to vectorize this, turn this into vectors, right? And you're going to have to know going in that when you vectorize things, they're not going to look crisp like this image, right? If you're going to be working with raster stuff and you want it to be crisp, you'd use Photoshop, right? So we're going to walk through this process, or you can just watch me write down notes, or you can walk through yourself, whatever you prefer. And again, I'm recording this so you could check it out later. But essentially, once you bring this in, and I deselected, so nothing's up here is based on this image. But while you have this image selected, right, raster image, you'll get this option at the top, assuming you have your control panel on, right? You'll get this option at the top, and we want to image trace this image. So we're just clicking one button. It's converting it to vectors. This is just a preview that it gives you right off the bat. And as you noticed, it's still not vectors. It's still, we still have this line through it, right? But the options at the top changed. This image option right here, image trace panel, this is what you want to be opening. I believe it's also a window option here, right? But it's this little square panel box with like some lines on it. We want to be opening that. And here's how we have the ability to be changing all of this content, like how this is vectorizing. So right now it's black and white. And as you can see, we have other options here. So realistically, if you're going for something really realistic, which, I'd kind of think you'd probably want to avoid that. You want to go with something more graphical. But if you did want to go more
Bernard,
real,
I think both of your computers have the audio on or your mic on.
I think maybe your mic's just on and it's echoing.
Yeah, it's echoing through when my mic is off too. I don't know if that's because of
I
that.
I only have one computer on, so
Okay,
I don't know what to tell you.
all good then. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, apologies. I can just try to mute and unmute real quick. Well, the recording should be good though, as well. So this advanced panel, this allows you to refine how well the paths look, right? The more paths we have, the more clarity. The corners of the paths, the less corners we have, the more clarity we will have as well. And then the threshold is going to dictate the lights and the darks, right? You could think of this as like exposure almost. So sometimes you have to manipulate this to get exactly what you want, right? You could have it look like it's got a high casting shadow or a little bit in between, whatever. From this point on, there's different presets you could be going over, right? But what I usually just do is change it to color. And if your machine is really slow with this kind of stuff, you could also turn preview off until you adjust things. I will say though that these preview loading times, the rendering times, are a fraction of what I had to deal with when I started Illustrator. I'd have to wait, you know, when I just did that, I'd have to wait like a minute and a half. So it's pretty good. I just have to kind of deal with it. So when you get it to something like this, I would still be limiting it to a few colors rather than this many, right? Again, we're not really dealing with image quality stuff here. We're trying to change an image that we have that we're using. So what I'd probably do is, you know, bring the paths down. We'll wait for that to upload here. And then I'd also try something like 6 colors maybe, or sometimes 4 is too low of a number. Depends on what image you're using. You know, and that's starting to look pretty decent. And so, and maybe bring up the noise a little bit because it's a little choppy on these corners. Sometimes the noise will give it a nice little rounded off effect. Maybe a tiny bit it did, but so it all depends on what you're looking for, right? And then once this is done, once you're happy with whatever you have here, the colors don't have to be what you want to have as colors in the end. You want to be focusing on the different vectors, how they're broken apart, right? So once you're happy with kind of what you have as a preset here, you just hit expand. So just the same way where we were expanding type, right? And if we deselect, reselect, things are still grouped. So just like type, just like other objects, if you expand them, you still have to separate the vector components. So now these are individual components. And so similar to how we were selecting things in Photoshop, there's like, you have the ability to use like the magic wand and say, oh, I want to select all these dark tones, right? And maybe, maybe this was our color that we want to be using, right? And so to say, if we're using a color guide, all of our image contents are based on that. Then you could potentially just go back through, and select those different components. And you want your tolerance down. I mean, this is just like a quick hack and slash. I'm trying to show you guys that you have the ability to, manipulate content. And like, what about just having some of that stuff transparent, And then whatever you might have behind that, it shows through. If I just quickly just show you guys something like, I don't know, black lines or something. And then if I group all of this and I send it to the back, right? Kind of like arrange send to back, so it's behind everything. All of a sudden you're creating an effect based on just transparency, right? And these different components could have different levels of transparency, or something to that degree or whatever. You could go as far as like pathfinding this stuff, right? So maybe I have all these green components now, and I select all the black, and then I remove the front or something, and that didn't work. It deleted stuff. So it's like a process of trial and error, but I wanted to show you guys that process of bringing in not just the image, but then thinking of that image converted into these objects rather than the image retaining itself as an image, right? Does anybody have questions on this?
So my project is basically like I'm sure you know of Anonymous, like the group or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Their mask is going to be like half of it. So am I allowed to just take an image and play with it, or would you want me to like make it myself, like shape by shape?
You could. That's your whole project?
I mean, that's not my whole project, but that's like a big element of it. Like it's like one of the bigger pictures within the project.
Okay. Well, you're utilizing type to a degree, right?
Right. No, of course, yeah.
Yeah, so the image can just be suffice like this, where you're bringing it in. You could vectorize it like this, and then remove whatever pieces of that image you don't need, and then still focus on highlighting the type as the main component.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.